Big news! Wayfair's President's Day clearance is on now, and you can score tons of huge deals. Like Wayfair's best deals since Black Friday. Right now through February 16th, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Like up to 50% off mattresses with fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus amazing flash deals on President's Day. Shop Wayfair's President's Day clearance now through February 16th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
A swift kick in the ass podcast.
Welcome to a Swift Kick in the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart. I'm joined with my lifelong friend John Curren, and today we're going to have lots of fun, as usual, and tell you how to get power.
Yes, we will, because whether you want to admit it or not, power is a central part of living on your terms. Feeling you are powerless or helpless is just completely miserable. No one wants less power in their own lives. We all want more. Some of what we're going to talk about in these episodes may sound evil, asocial, or even sinister. In some cases, it will be. Our intent is not to promote evil or the abuse of power, but rather to promote awareness of these laws that have stood the test of time. This way they can't be used against you. How you choose to use these in your own life is completely up to you, but we hope that you use this knowledge responsibly to better your own life, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility, just like Spider-Man said.
That's right. And today, we're going to cover Law 14 of Robert Greene's national bestseller, The 48 Laws of Power. And Law 14 reads, pose as a friend, work as a spy. Knowing about your rival is critical. Use spies to gather valuable information that will keep you a step ahead. Better still, play the spy yourself. In political social encounters, learn to probe. Yeah, politicians do that a lot. Ask indirect questions to get people to reveal their weaknesses and intentions. There's no occasion that is not an opportunity for artful spying. What do you think, John?
Well, I think I would not be a good spy at all, because I just like to talk too much, especially when people ask me about myself. I'm like spilling out my guts. Or is that just a clever guise?
Right, it could be a smokescreen.
It could be. I think that in everyday life there is opportunity to practice these laws, and like it says, play the spy yourself. Use these social encounters as a means of practice. In that way, when you actually need to use these laws, you're prepared. Just like practice spying, I guess it's called.
Yeah, it's funny. I have used this before, unfortunately. I mean, we all do this to some extent. And I mean, if it wasn't so successful, we wouldn't have organizations like the CIA or the now supposed defunct KGB. But I actually had this in a corporate environment where I had a boss that used to be my boss and was coming back. And I was the point of contact. I was like the inside man that would feed him information about, the availability of the job, what's going on, the rumors, all that kind of gossip and everything else. And because I wanted him to come back because it would have been good for me. And so we did that for quite a while, and it looked almost like a sure thing, but nothing's ever a sure thing. He was ready to get the job, had come in, talked to the general manager, everything was in line to happen. And the problem is that before he actually got the job, he said, let's take everyone out to lunch, tell the old crew, let's get together, and the gang's going to be back and, running again, right? So we went out to lunch, and we brought someone that we should not have brought with us. Someone that I was like, I don't know if this guy's the best guy to come with us, but, someone invited him mistakenly, and so this former boss of mine told his plan, said, hey, it's almost a sure deal. Probably by next week, I'm going to be the guy, right? Well, the guy that we brought with us to lunch went and told someone else, and they told someone else, and it all started rumoring that this guy was coming back. Well, one guy in particular said, "Oh, well, I got some dirt on him, and I don't want him to come back because I know if he comes back, I'm probably going to lose my job." So he made sure to make a loud ruckus, and that's Seth Godin would say, and caused enough, animosity or enough doubt in the new guy coming back, and that they said, you know what, let's review this and maybe we'll go with someone else. So the day that it was supposed to happen, they fired my boss that was there. Everyone kind of knew that was happening, and including him. He had, had some things happen, and that this, it was warranted. But the big surprise was when this other guy walked in and said, "Hey, I'm your new boss," and I was like, "Oh, well, who the hell are you?" And suddenly the guy that was supposed to be my boss is calling me up going, "Hey, what the hell's going on? I heard they just hired someone else." And I was like, "I don't know." But that was my foray into spying. And, I felt dirty. I remember telling my daughter when this was going on, I was like, I know the current boss that I had at the time was not the best guy. He wasn't crazy about him. He, I think he might have been a serial killer. But he just, and he even gave us, you'll remember this, John. Remember you came to my house, you were down one day, and you saw my fish tank, and you saw I had some fish swimming around there, and you go, "Hey, those are not good community fish. They're cannibalistic. They'll eat the other fish." Well, he gave those to me, knowing that my daughter had a fish tank. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to flush these down the toilet, but do you want to give them to your daughter so she can drop them in your fish tank?" I think that guy did it on purpose. So
he thought you were the double agent.
Well, yeah, he might have found me out, man. And so his fish conveniently ate all my daughter's fish, and then ate all of. Basically, there was one fat one left. In the end, it was swimming around. It had killed everyone. It was, it was horrible. But I felt bad. I was like, even though this guy's, not my favorite person, I feel bad because I feel like I'm going behind his back and giving information to someone that's going to replace him. And it just, it did not make me feel good at all. I was trying to do it to make a better situation for the entire place, but it backfired.
Yeah, I think that the boss who was supposed to come in, the old boss, I think he forgot that rule that's probably older than all of these laws of power. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, hey, how come that's not in here?
Yeah, I mean, he should have been quiet, kept it low, and just let it all play out and gather the team, the old team after you won. But it's really like celebrating a win before the game's even over. My dad used to have a saying. He said, people only know what you tell them. So I guess from a very young age, he told me not to be an open book, which is probably why I went just in that opposite direction.
And it's similar to one of the laws we had discovered here recently about always say less than necessary.
Yeah. And I can see a lot of people, who listen to this or have read the book themselves, questioning the book and saying, doesn't society teach us that we should trust people? And I believe, for one, that trust is the foundation of all relationships. When you communicate with someone you trust, it's much easier. It's free flowing. You don't have to worry about what you're saying. And the opposite is true when you're communicating with someone you don't trust. It is the foundation. But this law and other laws say, don't trust people. Don't be completely honest. Don't be an open book. People only know what you tell them, and let them draw their own conclusions. I can understand. I can understand how you would feel. You thought you were making things better for your situation and looking out for your own self-interest, and other people were as well. So I guess it's I could see it, but I guess both sides of the coin on that.
Yeah, it happened, and I don't have any regrets. I always tell my wife, I say I don't have regrets about anything, because whether it was good or bad, it's meant to get me where I am today, and I wouldn't trade where I am today because I have 2 beautiful children and a wonderful wife, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Who knows if events went different, what could have happened, So I don't look back for regret. I just live and learn. And I feel better not doing a tactic like this. I actually feel better because, that's the worst thing is when you're trying to lay down at night and you just feel bad, inside. It's, you have nightmares and it just wears on you and stresses you out. I'd rather just be honest and, go with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to be honest too, but I also recognize being honest at times does open yourself up to attack. It makes you more vulnerable sometimes, at times, because just like in your story, the word got out that this guy was coming back, and there were other people that didn't want him back because they might lose their job. Right. So they were acting in their own self-interest as well.
It's almost like a case study. Working in the entertainment field is like a case study. And I understand that's where Robert Greene came from. He worked in, in Hollywood. So that's what gave him the idea to write this book. But it's true, man. It's like a laboratory for the 48 laws of power. I've seen so many of these chapters I cover. I'm like, wow, I've lived that, or I've seen that, or been a victim of that.
Yeah, and I think it's just recognizing what these laws are, having a good understanding of them, and so you can see when they're happening to you, as well as using them when it's to your advantage. I always think of how I bring these laws into my own life, and my wife's family lives in Atlanta, and we always, we visit them quite often, and they come up here to Virginia to visit us. And it's funny. My wife will always ask me, how did you know about so-and-so, someone else in the family, or, what was going on? This is the first time I've ever heard of it. I'm like, well, because I talked to them and I asked them questions, and, they told me what was going on. So it's kind of funny that at times I actually know more about my wife's family than she knows herself. Yeah,
you bring up a valid point. This happens in families, man. And I'm sorry, but families like to gossip. And, I heard through the grapevine one time that one of my relatives said that I was sarcastic, right? And I was like, so whenever I'm at, I'm out at a shop or something like that, and I see I remember I saw a T-shirt that said something like sarcastic, or a good one which I wanted to get was it had like the bar, like the loading, like Windows is loading or something like that, and it was like 60% waiting to respond with a sarcastic comment across the chest. But I can't say it because it's family, but it's just funny that when you like learn those kind of things, you're like, really? Well, I guess I'm just sarcastic.
It's really funny. Back in college, I had a girlfriend who I was going out with, and she was getting to be buddy with all of my friends. So she would spend time with different friends of mine who were guys as well as girls. And they all kind of sat me down one evening and they said, this girl you're dating is she's not what she claims to be. She said she's divorced, but she's not even separated, and she was just lying to me, left and right about this and that. And, she's telling different friends different stories, and they are all working, not behind my back, but not in front of me. And they're comparing stories, and they're finding out, hey, you know what? She's lying about this and this and this and this. And that's when they came to me and just, said, hey, you need to lose her because she is big trouble, and it was that talking, it was my spy network that I had in place that got me the truth, and they were totally right. She was bad trouble.
It's funny because I had something similar. It was not the same situation. It was a girl that we were kind of like on the way where, she was older than me at the time. I think I was like in my early 20s, and she was like 29, and she was like thinking that so she wants to find a guy that wants to settle down and get married, and that wasn't me. At the time I was going to college, and that was not on my mind at all. So she started kind of like she didn't break up with me, but she kind of just started, I'm going to go out with my friends a few times a week and stuff like that here and there. And so she's at this club one night, and she doesn't know that my friend is the bouncer. And so as she's walking through the door, he recognizes her. She's never met him, but he's seen pictures of her and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, hey, aren't you Tom's girlfriend?" And she's like, and it's like, I totally ruined her game, and it's like, and she's just like, how? And plus I worked in radio and I was out in clubs and stuff, so it was like hard for her to be out at places and without seeing people that I knew. So it kind of threw a damper on her whole thing. I mean, eventually we broke up, and that was for the best, but it was just funny.
Yeah, I can remember back in college again, how your friends all want to gather together and have fun and go out and stuff, and I had to work, so they're all telling me to call in sick, or and I'm not admitting to any of it, but but I will just say, when you call in sick, don't come in the next day sunburned. It just it destroys your story that you're home sick when you have a tan and you went to the beach instead of going to work.
Hey, this is I'm going to use his name because he's a mutual friend, and I know he wouldn't care. But Benito, our friend Benito, was so slick when he worked in a laboratory. He still works in a laboratory, but at the time, this is a long time ago, like 20 years ago, maybe more. He was a master of clocking in and then going off and going to the movies and stuff like that. He took the cake. One time, he clocked in the morning, and he went on a day cruise. He went on a sea escape, went to the Bahamas, came back. That's what I say. He had a tan and clocked out at like midnight and got paid for it.
Man, that's when you're young and foolish. I mean, there's no way I would ever take a risk that, and being married with a family and kids that depend on me. I'm not playing those games anymore, but I guess you live and learn, because I do know people who did pull that trick about calling in sick and came in with a tan the next day, and they got into boatloads of trouble. So
you don't know how many engineers I've worked with that. One benefit of my job is that we have transmitter sites in addition to our studios. So you have to go out and make sure, that's where the actual station is. That's where the transmitter and the antennas are. And it's a pretty, important thing to maintain. So a lot of engineers that I know, and I'm sure this happens all over the country and the world, they use it as an excuse. Oh, I got to go to the transmitter site, and they go in there for a few minutes, and they go to their bar or to their boat or whatever. And we had one of my bosses, we used to, whenever he said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be at the transmitter site," we used to say, "Yeah, that's probably the name of his boat. Probably on the back of his boat it says the transmitter site, or the bar."
Yeah, that's funny. The name of my boat, according to my wife, is For Sale. I'm like, no, it's not. Anyhow, I think we're coming up to the end here, and we always like to tell you how to apply these laws in everyday life. So, when you're out there in a social setting, just, cast a net in conversation, because you never know what you're going to pull back in. Ask a lot of good questions. Ask indirect questions, meaning don't just ask yes or no questions. Ask questions in such a way that people are going to respond back to you, in sentences or even paragraphs. Let them spill the beans about what's going on. Or you just never know what you're going to learn.
Even in a book, it says get them basically pissed off. And because when people's emotions come out, they start spilling the beans and start going into, all this kind of stuff that you might have not found out otherwise.
Yeah, and another little note that I had written down here was to think about how predictable you are. And, people who we interact with on a daily basis tend to know how we're going to act. They know probably more about us than sometimes we know about ourselves. So it's a good idea, to think about how you interact with other people, how they see you, and and how well they can actually predict your behavior just based on the way you're acting.
Hey, one thing that you don't know is that I could be a Russian spy.
Tommy, I've known you since you were born. Okay,
I tricked,
and I've heard you say agua.
I've tricked my wife one time when I was in the Air Force. My job, one of the jobs that we had on our airplane was to do presidential support missions. So if the president went overseas, we had to be within an 8-hour rendezvous time of him. So he was going for it was Clinton when I was in, and he was going for a summit over in Russia. So this time they were actually flying my plane to Russia. It was the first time this plane was, top secret, super classified, but they were starting to kind of get away from that so they could actually keep the mission alive and get funding for it. So they were going to bring this and go to Russia. So I had to go through all the briefings because I wasn't the primary on the mission. I was a secondary. In case anyone got sick, I would replace them. So I had to go through all the briefings and hear all the fun parts about, the KGB's still there. They're going to hide cameras in your room. There's a Russian mafia. Don't get drawn into anything because they would love to be able to pull you in and, interrogate you. So, basically don't get in trouble. So, what I had to do is I had to take a photo and send it to Russia to get a passport. Well, I didn't go on the trip. No one got sick. So like 6 months later in the mail, I get this envelope with all this Russian language on it. And I open it up, and there's all it is this mugshot of me. It looks like I'm like a stone cold Steve Austin or something, like a killer. And all it is my mugshot, and my name in Russian is like Tomak Chupaka Stewart or so. I don't know. It's really cool. And so no explanation in it. That's all it is. It's my picture, and I guess what would have been maybe my passport in this envelope. And it arrives, and Jennifer sees it. She's like, "What is this?" And I'm, of course, me.
You're planning your escape.
I have to tell you something, Jen. And she's like getting all nervous and everything, and and finally, it's like, "I'm sorry, I'm just kidding."
But now you've put that shadow of doubt into your mind, and your relationship has never been the same.
Well, she also.
I thought your wife's supposed to be part of your spy ring.
Well, she's Polish, and she always thought her dad was a spy because he worked from home. She's like, "What does he do? I don't really understand what he does." Everyone thought he was a spy.
That's funny.
Anyway,
well, I don't know how we could top that story. So let's close up this episode. I really love seeing what people have to say about our show. It's awesome to see the comments. Please go into iTunes or Stitcher Radio and comment and leave us a rating. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to aswiftkickintheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.